What's up, you guys? Sean Ross Sapp of WrestlingInc.com and the Wrestling Inc. podcast. Here with a true X Division legend, Cruiserweight legend of the business in general, and he's still doing it at a very high level. Christopher Daniels, how you doing?
Very good, man. Thanks for having me on the show.
Now, you're in Ring of Honor right now. You all have a big pay-per-view coming up May 8th. Global Wars. The first thing I got to ask you, you've been in the ring with the likes of Samoa Joe, some of the most intimidating men on the planet. Tell me, where does Cheeseburger rank on that list?
Well, look, it's easy to dismiss Cheeseburger. You look at him as a kid that's 5'8", 125 pounds, very inexperienced. But I know not to judge a book by its cover, and I know that if a kid with those dimensions is willing to get in the ring with me, with Frankie Kazarian, you got to know that his heart has got to be the size of Cleveland. So, I mean, I'm fully aware that Cheeseburger is there to fight. He's there to prove himself, and he's teaming with his mentor, his idol, Jushin Liger. So, you know, in addition to not wanting to get killed, he's going to try to impress Liger. So, yeah, he's out there with nothing to lose and everything to gain. But having said that, and I respect Cheeseburger's heart, but Hart's not going to beat me, and it's certainly not going to beat Frankie Kazarian. So you can certainly expect a beating of biblical proportions.
Yeah, Jushin Thunder Liger has taken taken a liking to Cheeseburger, as have many fans. We saw him at I think it was Wrestle Kingdom on the pre-show, and he got a great ovation. They loved him over there.
Well, I mean, you look at what the whole point of Japanese wrestling is, or at least one of the facets, and it's that fighting spirit. And like I said, if anybody exemplifies that fighting spirit, it's a guy that's 5'8", 125 pounds, willing to get into the ring with guys like me, guys like Moose, guys, you know, the biggest and the heaviest and the strongest in the world against this kid. So, yeah, I mean, of course the Japanese take a liking to him. They see heart in it.
We've seen over the past several years, especially with the New Japan relationship, Ring of Honor's pay-per-view presence has significantly increased because a lot of these New Japan World pay-per-views are essentially New Japan and Ring of Honor pay-per-views because you have so much talent that goes back and forth. How do you feel about that increased pay-per-view presence? I mean, it's clearly working for both sides.
Well, I certainly feel like right now both companies are benefiting from the relationship. You know, Ring of Honor has always been about the best wrestling in the world, and by adding the New Japan talent into the mix, it certainly ups everybody's game. You're seeing matches that you might not have seen, matchups between our talent and the Japanese talent that are certainly newsworthy and certainly, worth the price of admission alone. And at the same time, New Japan, who is on a tear, who's like one of the most popular companies in the world, they're gaining a lot of great United States exposure by being on Ring of Honor television, being on Ring of Honor's pay-per-views. And so, like, I feel like both companies are benefiting, both companies are thriving and surviving and excelling at this point, and I'm personally thrilled. Having this relationship, it opened the door for me to return to Japan after close to 10 years. No, excuse me. 7 years. I was thinking of the time I was there last time in a full-time spot, but I wrestled there in 2007. So anyway, my point being, getting a chance to go back last year was a big deal to me, getting an opportunity to work with guys that I hadn't worked with before, like Tanahashi and Yuji Nagata and, Okada. Like those guys, they really push you to be at the top of your game. And that, at this point in my career, is something that I thrive on. People that are going to push me to my limits and prove that I still have what it takes to be here.
The thing I like is that New Japan and Ring of Honor, I mean, pretty much New Japan has become like their stars have become essentially recurring characters on Ring of Honor TV. It happens so much. I think that's awesome to see. There were reports, I think it was last month, that you had taken an increased backstage role with Ring of Honor. Is that true? And if so, how has that been for you?
It's true. I've taken more of a leadership role in the back. Nothing specifically official. I mean, it's not like I can't say I'm, the head of talent. I don't have a title in that respect, but I certainly try to contribute to the product as best I can in terms of the day-to-day shows, trying to sort of help shine a spotlight on the stories that we're trying to tell, how to get the most out of the limited television time that we have, trying to get the most for each character that we've got. How do we tell the stories and the steps in these stories? But that's sort of my focus, is trying to get the most out of everybody and try to, eliminate the negatives and accentuate the positives for all the guys in the back and their matches that they're putting out there.
Now, I mean, you've been at this a long time. How much longer do you see yourself in the ring, especially since, you're active backstage now as well?
Well, part of the reason for me to sign this contract that I did with Ring of Honor was sort of to plant the seeds of what's going to be my focus in wrestling after I'm done wrestling. But at the same time, that didn't come with a timetable. Like, I don't feel like there's a timetable for me right now in terms of, I'm going to wrestle 1 more year or 3 more years or 5 more years. I'm sort of playing it by ear. And having said that, the last couple of months, I feel like I've sort of been rejuvenated in the sense that, like, I've got more of a focus on wanting to stay in the ring as long as I can. And so I'm training a little bit harder. I'm doing a little bit more homework in terms of, like, boning up on these guys' matches and watching their tapes and stuff like that. And I don't see a time in the near future where I'm going to hang up the boots.
You've also participated in this Universal Studios Waterworld stunt show. What was that like? I saw the video of it. You look like a natural.
Oh, yeah. My degree's in theater. I've always wanted to be a performer in that respect. And it was an avenue it was an opportunity that I really couldn't turn down. And because I signed with Ring of Honor and became exclusive, it sort of opened up my free time to be able to pursue this. And, living in Southern California and being so close to Hollywood, I would love the opportunity to venture more into the world of stunt work and acting. And, I'm working with a lot of great stunt coordinators and stunt performers in this show. And it's a great experience for me. And part of it, too, is, I've been wrestling for 23 years, but in this instance, I'm the rookie. And so I'm sort of learning by working with a lot of veteran stunt guys and stunt performers, stunt men and women. And that for me is a new challenge, to sort of be the rookie again and sort of build up my repertoire and build up the reps of doing what I do. So, I mean, it's been a lot of fun, and I certainly enjoy it. I look forward to the days that I go down and perform.
Now, I speak to a lot of former TNA talents and a lot of current ones too. Almost everybody seems to have a feast or fired story. Something tells me that you've got a few. You were, and it's an interesting concept, polarizing. I've had, Daivari and Chavo Guerrero tell me that they were livid about the concept. It was used a little bit differently for you, maybe to introduce a new character. What were your feelings on that? I mean, you got the quote unquote pink slip twice under that match.
Yeah, there were discussions after the second match to just put my face on the fired instead of the word fired, just my face in the briefcase. Honestly, I like using it in real life, or using it to sort of end somebody's contract. I thought was very distasteful. But I mean, at the same time, if you're going to make it an annual thing, you sort of limit the amount of times you can use it to introduce a new character, like they did with me. So I felt like it certainly sort of painted you into a corner. And honestly too, like, I felt that unless it was like a heel who had run his course, and for me, like the second year when Curryman was fired, like to me, the concept of firing a babyface, like to me, as far as like the fans' reaction, like what kind of good was that? So I certainly didn't enjoy it. I certainly didn't think like, I got the idea of, trying to think outside the box and really lend some real life stakes to this. But at the same time, I felt like it was very, like there was only a certain amount of like scenarios that could play out. before it got to be sort of uncomfortable and not entertaining. And that sort of is not the point.
So did you go into that? Did they go into that saying, hey, we're going to fire you in this first one. We're going to bring Curry Man around. And how long into that character did they say, well, we're going to do it again?
The first time I pitched Curry Man to them, they responded with the feature fire thing. So I sort of knew going in that was the deal. The second time, I didn't know that I was going to get the pink slip until we wrestled the match. And then at that point, I had no clue what was going to happen for me. There was a discussion for a while that was going to be the end of my TNA contract as well. And, circumstances changed in terms of like me staying there and working a suicide for a little bit and then continuing on as myself. But yeah, I like a lot of times they don't really tell the guys that that's the plan. And certainly my understanding is they didn't tell Chavo that was.
Or Daivari.
Yeah, I didn't even know about Sean's. I speculated, but I've heard Chavo talk about how they told him sort of at the very last minute that, hey, this is it. And, that's a bit low class in my eyes, but.
Yeah, Chavo told me that he had to contact his attorney and be like, no, you can't do this. And I guess they had to work something out. Daivari told me that he was just livid about it, and he tried to volunteer to be fired to save Cody Deaner's job, and then they fired Cody Deaner anyway.
Yeah, that's right. Originally he was trying to make a story out of it, if I recall, and trying to get Cody to stick around. And it, like I said, it sort of is entertaining. If you're going to fire a hated heel, then there's a consequence that the fans can sort of be entertained by. And I give Sean credit for volunteering to be that guy, but that to me, then for them to fire Cody again at the end, it was just poorly handled. Just an example of just a poorly handled situation.
I thought it was an interesting.
In my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, it's a direct, take off of the Money in the Bank thing, but I thought it was an interesting concept. But the idea of working your own talent seems like kind of in bad taste, as you mentioned. Was there ever a time where you thought, because you were in TNA for a long time, was there ever a time you just thought that TNA was going off the rails into the direction they are now?
Not until I left, honestly. Even my mentality, even when things were sort of going bad and looking back at, the way, especially the last 2 years of my career they went, I sort of held out hope that they were going to, give us a chance to sort of get back to the top of the mountain, in terms of like, not just being the champions, which at that point sort of made sense because we were really the only tag team that was established until the Wolves came around. But just the idea of having more focus on us and being a cog in the machine that was paid attention to. But, I was holding out hope for that. And at the end, I finally realized that they had no plans on that at all and sort of strung us along for that last, 6 months, the last, 6 to 8 months that we were there. And so, yeah, I was disappointed. And, but I mean, it's what it is. I mean, they made their decisions, and at the end of it all I can do is just, say that I went out with my head up and, I did everything they asked me to at the very end. And even, when they pulled me aside the day of my last day there, they told me before I went and wrestled that they weren't going to renew my contract, and then I had to go wrestle a ladder match with the Wolves, and I went out and did it. So
there are very, I don't want to say even preliminary reports, but reports that Sinclair might be interested in buying TNA, if anything, for the library, because they have this tennis channel they may be rebranding. How would you feel about that? I mean, you worked for TNA for a long time, had a lot of great times there.
Oh, I don't know, man. If TNA is faltering as much as they are and need that, my first thought goes out to the talent. I certainly don't want to see any of those guys lose a job or lose an opportunity to, feed their families or put food on the table. I don't know if that's the right thing for Sinclair, but, I don't know what their end game is. I'm not sure what their mentality is for that. They might just be looking to gain programming, like you said, for a new channel. And if that's the case, great. I think Sinclair's got a good sense of what they want to do in terms of professional wrestling. I feel like their management of Ring of Honor in the last couple of years has been top-notch. And all the steps that we've been taking, whether they've been big steps or small steps, they're still steps forward. And so, if that's the way they want to go, if they feel like adding TNA to the Ring of Honor brand in some way, shape, or form, whether it's consolidating everything under the banner of ROH or, keeping TNA as a separate entity, I don't know. But it's certainly, I guess there's plenty of avenues that they could explore and get the most out of it.
Also, Austin Aries made some comments recently about TNA needing to drop Dixie Carter to grow. Do you think that's true? How do you feel about that?
Well, I certainly think that if her mentality and keeping control of the company is keeping it from going forward in terms of a business sense, then certainly I think people need to sort of take a step back and look at that and see what's holding everything up. I mean, if TNA is in such a position now where they need to sell and they need a rapid influx of capital, and the thing that's holding it up is their insistence on maintaining control, I think that sort of speaks for itself.
Well, it certainly wasn't all bad in TNA. In my opinion, my favorite match of all time was you, AJ Styles, and Samoa Joe at Unbreakable. It was one of the greatest matches I've ever seen in my life. What are your memories of that match? And did you know as it was happening, this is something special?
I sort of had that feeling in the middle of it. We were still sort of fresh in the impact zone at that point. And, knowing that they put us on last and, giving us the opportunity to be the main event, I felt like they were setting the table for us to do well. And then, as often as I had worked with Joe at that point and had worked with AJ at that point, I knew that the three of us could put something special together. And as we're going through it, I sort of got the impression that the people were, buying what we were selling. And then when it was over, I just remember that feeling of relief, like we had gotten through it and did what we wanted to do. And I was very happy and content with what we had presented. I had no idea that, 10 years down the line, people would still be talking about it and calling it the best match or one of the best matches in TNA's history. So, I mean, I appreciate that. It certainly stands out in my career as one of the highlights. And, I'm just happy that people feel that way about it. It certainly is special. It has a place in my heart in that respect.
I think that even saying in TNA history is underselling it a little bit. I mean, that match was damn near perfect. I don't know how much better it can get than that. And I had completely forgotten that you all had went on last, but I remember when I ordered that pay-per-view and I realized that you do kind of get that feeling that something special is going to happen. WWE is doing a global Cruiserweight series soon. Do you think that, how do you feel about that?
Well, I guess I sort of have to wait and see. I feel like the last couple of months for NXT, they've certainly shown that they're willing to sort of think outside the box or sort of get rid of some of the constraints that they seem to put on their programming back in the day in terms of their attitude towards cruiserweights. And you look at some of the hirings in the last couple of months, they're picking up Austin Aries, giving guys like Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano and Rich Swann an opportunity to go out and excel. So I look forward to seeing some of the matches, knowing that guys like Zack Sabre Jr. are a part of it, someone who I hold in high regard. I'm interested to see what they do with it. And I feel like, I feel like they're giving it an honest chance to sort of get over. And I think that NXT at this point is sort of the right platform for that to do that.
Yeah, it seems to me like the stigma of the quote unquote small guy is kind of going away. I think that maybe UFC has something to do with that, because you see Anderson Silva, by WWE standards, he would have been a cruiserweight, even a smaller cruiserweight, and he was one of the baddest dudes on the planet for years.
Sure, and you look at Conor McGregor as well. I mean, one of the best boxers in the business, and he's, 150 pounds? I'm not super familiar with
he's a champion at 145.
So, yeah, I mean, I think that it's for years now, boxing and, in the past decade, mixed martial arts has shown that it's not the size of the guy in the fight, as the cliche goes. And you look at the last couple of years, too, like even in WWE, guys like Daniel Bryan, guys like CM Punk, they weren't 6'5" and 280. They were, a smaller guy, but they were more athletic, and they certainly got over in spite of what the perception of the wrestler was in the WWE. That big men syndrome that they were always accused of being back in the day. Those guys sort of helped break that mold, and now you look at, for example, AJ Styles being the number one contender for the World Championship. That's just another example of them giving guys the opportunity and not sort of putting those constraints on them in terms of what their perception of a wrestler is.
We mentioned AJ Styles and Samoa Joe in WWE in that great match you had. How did you feel about them joining WWE, and have you talked to them since then?
I absolutely have, man. I've tried to, keep in touch with them as much as possible, just because, I'm thrilled to see that they're doing well. I knew that both of them would do well if they were given the opportunity. And, I kept in touch with Joe as he was going through the process of, signing with them and finding out the opportunities that he was being given. It's just exciting. It showed that there was a change of perception in the office there. And so I was thrilled. And if there's anyone that deserved the opportunities that having that change in perception benefited, it was Joe. I felt like he did so much at TNA and he did so much in Ring of Honor that he certainly deserves to be seen on a grand scale. And I feel like, he's proven his worth at NXT, and now the first guy that's ever held the ROH, the TNA, and the NXT title. History is his.
Also, how do you feel about people comparing NXT to ROH? I mean, you all do run a lot of the same cities and target some of the same fans.
Well, I think it's, for them to compare NXT to Ring of Honor is sort of a compliment to Ring of Honor. And I think, like I said, again, it sort of points to that change in perception. Ring of Honor was never a company that was based around the big guy. It was based around your talent. And it didn't matter if you were, a smaller guy, a bigger guy, whatever. You went out there and you performed and you got yourself over. And I feel like, I don't know if specifically Ring of Honor sort of, tempered the construction of NXT or its direction in the past couple of years. But, I mean, you can certainly see the parallels in the way that guys are booked and the way that guys are presented in terms of what they're doing in NXT. And in terms of the matches, at least, the styles that NXT and the styles that Ring of Honor have been presenting are very similar.
Also, we had some unfortunate news last week as former WWE Intercontinental Champion Chyna passed away. Do you have any thoughts on Chyna? Any memories? I'm not sure if you all ever worked together or in the same place.
We never specifically got a chance to work together. And the few times that I was doing dark matches and syndicated matches for them, I got a chance to meet her and talk with her. And after the fact, we had, shared a locker room a couple times. And she was a very nice lady. She was always very polite and respectful to me. And, you can't deny the impact that her career had on wrestling as a whole. She changed. She broke down some barriers. And I feel like a lot of the ladies today owe a debt of gratitude for, you say paving the way often for people like that. And it's sort of cliche, but at the same time, she sort of blazed a new trail for women in the WWE. And, and I think, the outpouring of respect from all the ladies in the WWE and the women that wrestle, no matter where they are. I think it speaks volumes about their respect for Chyna.
Ring of Honor's tag division has always been impressive, but right now you have Addiction, the Young Bucks, War Machine, Roppongi Vice, Motor City Machine Guns, or Red Dragon, and that's just naming some of them. I haven't even got through them all. How does it feel to be a part of this? I don't want to say a genesis because like I said, the tag division's been strong for a long time, but this is a really hot period for tag wrestling in Ring of Honor.
I think it's great, man. It's you look around and like you said, you mentioned all those guys. I'll add the Briscoes to that list. I'll add the All Night Express to that list. Knowing that you can go in there and wrestle any one of those teams and have a great match, it's exciting. And like I said, it all lends itself back to me being motivated to try and keep up with all these great teams that you just mentioned. Still trying to stay at the top of my game, trying to use the tools at my disposal to sort of stay on top. That's the challenge that's keeping me going. You know what I mean? That's my drive now, is knowing that there are all these great teams. How does Christopher Daniels and Frankie Kazarian stand out? And that's my goal right now, is to stand out in probably the most crowded tag team scene in pro wrestling right now and in Ring of Honor history. I mean, I don't know if there was a time where we had so many championship caliber teams vying for spots in Ring of Honor, but I mean, that's where we're at, and I'm thrilled.
Also, we left out one that's a personal favorite of mine, the Beer City Bruiser and Silas Young.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Silas Young is a joy to watch. That persona in today's wrestling, it fits so well.
I'm a huge fan of Silas and a huge fan of the Beer City Bruiser. I feel like Silas certainly turned a corner, or he opened up a lot of eyes in the last couple of months with his feud with Dalton Castle. And
deceptively athletic, that guy. Like,
absolutely,
you look at him,
absolutely.
You don't expect him to be that agile, and he's remarkable.
Yeah, he's a great performer. He's a very well-rounded guy and a very great performer. And I look forward to more stuff out of him in the coming months. I feel like he's just sort of scratched the surface. And, him and the Beer City Bruiser, it's a very eclectic duo. And, not necessarily what you would call a standard tag team, but I mean, it works for them. And, every time I've seen them work, I've seen them do matches with the Briscoes. I've seen them do matches with the Young Bucks. And they hold their own, man. They're not just there to enhance. They're there to win. They're there to perform. They're there to be great. And I'm a big fan of both of those guys.
Now, before we go, what other projects do you have going on?
Well, in addition to continuing to be the best tag team in the business, Frankie and I are working on the second comic book to get produced soon. We're actually selling copies of the first comic book, Christopher Daniels and Kazarian Wrestle All Yeah Comics, at Ring of Honor events throughout the U.S. And I've already written the sequel. I'm just waiting for Art Baltazar and Franco, the masterminds behind All Yeah Comics, to sort of greenlight the art part of the project. And hopefully once that's done, in addition to those being available at Ring of Honor events, they'll also be available at comic shops throughout the country.
That's awesome. I spoke to Mike Kingston recently, who I know that you've been a big fan supporter. I think did you even contribute to Headlocked?
I did. I contributed a story, and Frankie just contributed a story to the current trade paperback that's out. And I know that the one that's upcoming is got Samoa Joe and the Young Bucks contributing stories. And I don't think I'm done with my stories for Mike. I might contribute another one if he offers. I've got an idea that I'd like to throw his way. But yeah, I'm a big supporter of Mike. I feel like Headlock is a very it's a very interesting comic book, and I feel it's very close to the stuff that we've gone through, and it definitely speaks to me as a professional wrestler, and I feel like it's a very entertaining comic book for comic book fans out there. So if you're not picking it up, go pick it up and go get it. Support Mike Kingston and Headlock today.
And finally, tell the people where they can find you online, on social media, all that good stuff.
Okay, well, you can follow me on Twitter at FACDaniels. I don't do a lot of Facebook or Instagram. I dabble in it. My Facebook is sort of attached to my Twitter, and my Instagram is FA Christopher Daniels. So every once in a while I'll throw a photo up, but other than that, Twitter is usually the best bet. I try and keep people abreast of my schedule, things that I got coming up. And my website is fallenninjachristopher.daniels.com, but I'm in the midst of sort of revamping that. So once that comes back online and has all the knowledge that you need to know about me, I'll make sure that everybody finds out and start getting sent there for all of their latest TV news.
Christopher, I want to thank you so much. Guys, Ring of Honor, New Japan, Global Wars, May 8th, pay-per-view on a Sunday. Really looking forward to it. I really appreciate you taking the time and speaking to us.
No problem, man. Thanks for having me, and thanks to the fans for listening in and supporting all these years.